Hey, horror fans, happy October once again. Bored now, back with Rachel McDonald. On this video, we will be talking about Queen of Spades Through the Looking Glass from 2019. So, this is the second Queen of Spades movie. We did the first one last year for October as well. Version of Candyman. It had a very
Yes.
similar premise, backstory to do with a witch and a curse. And you had these characters in like a local neighborhood, these kids in particular, and a brother and sister who came from like a sort of a single parent household and family. Like they return in this movie, and they're on their way to a boarding school. The siblings are. There's friction in the family because of the par and the symbol, and they start making wishes, and obviously they're the only two saying, yeah, this is not good, it's this curse, and the others obviously don't believe them, and they start mocking it, and things just escalate from there. You were pretty positive on the first movie, so Rachel, what did you think of the sequel?
So like I have to admit I didn't remember the first movie that well because it has been a year since we saw it, but I did
Yeah,
remember that we liked it. So I actually didn't realize that it was the same kids from the original movie. So um
I'm
I
pretty
actually quite
sure it
liked
was.
this
Yeah.
one. So
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
so as Cleve said, this starts, so it does start with them, their mother gets into a car accident and their mother dies. And for one thing, okay, first of all, unfortunately we did have to watch one with an English dub, which I do have to say did
I was
take me
gonna.
out of the
It's
movie a
quite
few times.
distracting, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is quite distracting because
Yeah.
when we watched the original one, we watched it in Russian and that was much, much better. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm guessing there isn't a version out there, or at least a version that we could find that was in Russian. So yeah, the dubbing did distract a little bit. But I mean, once I got used to it,
Yeah.
like I had to just kind of give it a few minutes and settle into the movie and just be like, okay, this is what it's going to be like. Just kind of go with it. I did quite enjoy this one. I thought that I
Hmm.
liked the new setting. I thought the boarding school was a good setting,
Yeah.
especially, and we'll go into this. We discuss spoilers. You find out that the boarding school itself is part of the legend of the Queen of Spades. So I thought that was cool that they worked that in. It gave me kind of haunted house vibes, which I like. I like a good haunted house story. I thought it had that kind of color scheme that goes with haunted houses. Lots of blues, lots of darks, lots of shadows, and I thought the cinematography was quite good. I mean, at times it felt a little bit cliched, a little bit tropey. There
Yeah.
were a few moments where I was like, okay, this is obviously like your typical kind of spooky haunted house, shadows appearing in the mirror and stuff like that. But overall, I thought it was a decent setting. I do have to say the characters were a little thin. I do think
Hmm.
some of the supporting characters that we got were a little bit cliched, a little bit caricature. There was that girl Alyssa who has the crush on her teacher, and she's obviously supposed to be like the bad girl. And then she has her chubby friend who's obviously her friend because she makes her look better. And then you had the angry kid who had the young stepmother that he doesn't like. So I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, the movie wasn't that long, so there really wasn't time to get into their characters. But I didn't start to feel for the characters really until about like towards the climax of the film. I felt that maybe there could have been like a little bit more character development. But I think that Olga and Artyom, I think those
We'll
two
go with
had.
that. Yeah.
We'll go with Artyom. I think Olga and Artyom had decent characterization. They were very much showing how Olga has stepped a bit away from her brother. She might blame him slightly for the mother's death because they were arguing in the car before the car went off the bridge. She might just be suffering, PTSD from the car crash. But I do like that she had that little arc of, overcoming that and learning to accept her brother and that he's still her brother no matter what. So I thought that was pretty good. But overall, yeah, I did enjoy watching this. I didn't find it scary per se, but it was atmospheric, which I liked. There was a
Yeah.
lot of good atmosphere and good tension. Once they brought the Queen of Spades legend back in and they started to, tell us what she was, I was like, oh, yes, I remember this from the first film. Okay, yes, I remember the hair cutting. I remember the bad wishes.
Hmm.
I think it linked pretty well. And then, yeah, once they started to get into, because like you said, in the original movie, we find out a little bit about exactly who the Queen of Spades was. And in here, we get like an actual backstory for her. Her backstory and the way they showed her actually reminded me a bit of The Woman in Black. Black, which is a movie that I love.
Right,
But
okay.
yeah, she actually looked a bit like her, and her methods were a little bit like her. So I'm wondering if maybe the director has seen that and took some cues from there, because some of the atmosphere and stuff, yeah, definitely reminded me of that. But overall, I did quite enjoy it. What about you? How did you go with watching it?
So, okay, I was definitely more mixed on this one. I think I
Okay.
certainly prefer the first one to this.
Hmm.
This one was a little bit weird in like when it comes to horror because it was sort of up and down where I agree with you that the setting was quite creepy and there was
Hmm.
definitely some good shots in there and there were a couple of good sort of jump scares. But then there were other times where they just went OTT and
Hmm.
some scenes got a bit too silly and they sort of went overboard with the CGI. It's almost, yeah,
Yeah.
I think you sort of saw The Witch a bit too often. They could have sort of played that down a bit more.
Mm.
So it was a bit of a weird mix where you had some truly creepy type scenes. There's a scene I really liked, the scene where like Atrium appears in the mirror, like because they're talking and they're next to the mirror and they're sort of having this argument, and I think it's around the time he's trying to convince her that he's seen the mother and she's there,
Mm.
and suddenly a second Atrium appears in the mirror
Yes.
and it freaks her out. I mean, I thought that was a really good shot, but
Mm.
yeah, there's certain times where I think it's either then it gets too CGI or just then it just gets a bit too silly. Like there's certain things in the movie that are just really like cheesy and silly. Because I think some of the stuff you were talking about with the characters is like where it does at times feel like it's being like too much of a goofy sort of teen type film,
Yes. Yes. It did
and
have
it
that
it happens.
at times. Mm.
Yeah, because one of the lights was definitely, the storyline with the friend, with the fat friend, and how they
Yeah,
just
that
kept
was.
playing on that. I mean, that was really nasty to watch,
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
and
Mm.
it's very cliche, like you said. It's this, like Melissa is like the popular kid, and
Yeah.
she's kind of rebellious, but she's popular, and she has this friend who she keeps
Mm.
around because she is like bigger and makes her feel
Yeah. So she makes her
better.
look better. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and there were certain times where you thought, okay, maybe she does actually quite like this person, but then she would sort of like in the next sentence she would sort of put her foot in her mouth again.
Yeah, so her wish to the
Yeah.
Queen of Spades was that she would stop stuffing her mouth. And so her food starts to transform. So she goes to bite an apple and maggots, and it turns into a
Oh
cockroach.
yeah, that
Or,
was such a
yeah,
bad scene. Like
that was yeah, that
because
was pretty
it's when
bad.
you get a CGI and something wiggles in the. It must have been like a
Yeah.
cockroach or so. That
Mm-hmm.
that looks so
Yeah.
bad
So yeah, so
and
she has
just
that, or
silly.
her food turns to maggots, or her food makes her vomit, or something. But that being said, because obviously the wishes they do start to go to the extreme, I did think there was one effective scene with her, and that's when I think she saw the Queen of Spades, and then she goes into her room and she's like, "Okay, fine, if you want me to eat, I'm gonna eat." And she takes a bite of an apple, and there's like a piece of glass in it, or a razor blade, or
Yeah,
something, and all of a sudden she's pulling like I found that scene quite unsettling because I don't like anything to
that
do
was
with like,
quite well done.
yeah, I thought that was quite well done. And then when you saw her being taken away, she had the almost like the Joker smile across her face because she'd been cut up from the
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I thought that was quite effective. Like I thought her eventual fate was quite effective. But yeah, the maggots and the cockroaches and stuff, that's definitely an example of like not great CGI, and a bit more showing the low budget of the film, I think. Like I think that
Yeah.
yeah, it just wasn't as effective when we were seeing the build up, but the actual climax of her story I thought was quite good, and showed how malicious the Queen of Spades could actually be, and that it's a real threat and that they need to take it seriously, because obviously part of the movie is them not believing when the wishes there's one guy whose name I can't remember, but he keeps saying, one wish down, two wishes down. He's keeping count of the wishes as they go along, and he's
That's.
noticing that.
I think that's the guy who sort of like Delga, wasn't it? I
Yes,
think.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't
And
remember his name, but
yes,
yeah.
so I thought that the scenes with him and Elga were really good. Like I liked when they were researching the Queen of Spades, and they found out that the boarding school was actually like a orphanage or something like that, and that the Queen of
Yeah.
Spades had lost her child, and so she was sacrificing children, one soul in exchange for another. And then, oh, that scene was a bit intense. We got to see her drown a child, which I did not sign up for that. And then they came in and like beat her to death, and that's when her spirit kind of fused with, whatever was in the place, and she became Queen of Spades. So I thought that was an interesting thread, and kind of added a bit more depth to the movie and tied the mythology into the first one a little bit. So I did enjoy those scenes, and the scenes where they were in the cemetery and they were talking about her, and the dodgy principal comes over and is like, I thought maybe the principal was going to have something to do with something at one point, but she turned out to not really know anything.
Good building of mythology from the first film. I agree
Yeah.
with that. And her wish, wanting to. That's, I mean, again, that's that cliche sort of teen type thing, wanting to. Also, I wasn't too sure because the scene where like that wish actually comes true and she like dies, I wasn't sure if technically that was a rule break because like he actually forces himself on her. Because I thought like in theory it would have to happen naturally, like she would just accept a kiss. But because
Yeah.
she backed off and then it went after her, I didn't know if that was a bit of a rule break, maybe. But
Oh, I'm not sure. That's
I don't know.
interesting. Yeah. Her whole little
Maybe.
crush on her teacher thing, though. I'm so tired of these threads in teen shows. I don't think I knew a single person growing up who had a crush on their teacher. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but again, it feels
Oh,
like a bit
I'm
of a
pretty
cliche
sure it happens.
storyline. Okay. But yeah,
Well,
it
it
does
just
feel like a bit
happens
of a
too
cliche
much. Yeah,
storyline.
yeah, in
Mm.
films and TV, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost. I think because she didn't really believe in the curse, and she just
Yeah.
did it in a mocking way. So I guess that was what they were going for. But because they had to then follow through on it, it was a bit, yeah, it was a bit
Yeah.
cliche and crappy to watch. And with the guy who wanted his stepmom killed,
Yeah.
that was a pretty bad scene as well. That was a bit ropey.
Uneven. Like you said, sometimes it felt like
Yeah,
they were doing like a teen, movie, just a typical teen movie. They had that scene where they had the after hours party, and they were going around the school after hours, and then other times it would switch to kind of trying to be like this haunted house movie. It had some cool imagery. The doll, the creepy ass doll that the kid ends up in possession of, like that doll was freaking me out,
yeah,
man. It was not good with its massive googly eyes, and then you find out that it's like a conduit for this Queen of Spades. And I thought the little kid playing Artyom was quite good. The way he kept insisting
yeah,
that he could
not
see his
bad.
mother, and yeah, his hallucinations. I thought they were quite effective. And I thought the climax of the film was quite interesting. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
overall, look, I did enjoy it. But yeah, it was definitely quite tropey in places, and there were a few things that made me
Hmm.
question, like, what's going on here? Is this just for the point of the plot? Like, Elga she finds out that if you want to run away from the school, the best way to do it is early in the morning, you hop in the back of the delivery truck that comes to the school and you can escape. So Olga decides that she's going to do that. And the teacher, who is trying to be her father figure, comes out and is all like, oh, you can't do this, you can't run away. And then he ends up changing his mind. He just gives her some money and he's like, just make sure that you call
Yeah.
your brother every so often. And I'm like, why is this teacher helping a minor escape? Like, that doesn't seem
Well,
right.
I thought that as well, and I thought, well,
That's
what?
even
Why is it?
worse.
That's
Yeah.
even worse. Yeah, why is he? But even so, a teacher, it's
Mm,
bad enough. So
yeah.
yeah, that was definitely an odd choice. So that was, and at one point, I wondered if they were going to go down the route of involved, and they were just
Yes.
covering it up, like
I
because that.
thought so too.
I mean, that headmistress from the start looked very creepy and
Hmm.
clearly. And they did play
Yeah.
that up a bit. Then they just didn't want bad publicity. But
Mm,
I thought it was going to be more than that. I thought
I
then the
did too.
school knew more than they were letting on, And they didn't really do anything with that in the end. Like in the end,
No.
she went off and answered questions at the police
Mm.
station, and you didn't see her again. I don't think so.
Yeah. No,
That was
I
a
was the
good.
same. I thought she was gonna, because like I said, when they were in the graveyard and they were talking about the Queen of Spades and how she died, the principal pops up out of nowhere and she's like, "No, no, she wasn't sacrificing kids. That's just something they said to, to justify killing her the way they did." So I thought, oh, the principal knows something. Okay, cool. This is gonna come back, but then it didn't. Like there was just no follow through, and that was really odd and slightly annoying because yeah, that could have been a very cool reveal that the school like knew that the Queen of Spades was there. Maybe they were in tandem with her or something like that. And the cover up, that would have been a very cool thread if they decide to go that way, but they didn't. So it's a pity.
Scene in the lake quite
Yes.
early on. That
Yes.
was effective, I thought,
Hmm.
with the drowning.
With the drowning, yeah. And I
And
also
the
like the
underwater
after
shots
effects.
were very
Yes.
good.
Yes, they were very creepy. I like the way you saw Olga go into the water and she looked at her brother and then she looked down and in the reflection she saw the Queen of Spades. I thought that was a very interesting reveal. And I actually thought the aftermath
Mm-hmm.
of that was quite interesting. The fact that the teachers thought that Olga herself had hurt her brother. And, they pointed out, you've been really cold to him. You've been really distant to him. How do we know that you don't want to hurt him? And I think I liked that was the turning point of Olga to start to reconsider her behavior towards her brother and realize that she needs to protect him and she can't blame him for the accident. It wasn't the best characterization, but it at least was a little bit in there. It gave a little bit of depth to Olga's character and, showed that she's got problems and her problems are so great that people are starting to notice her behavior. So I liked that. And I think it set up the finale quite well. So obviously as we get towards the end, the little kid Artyom is taken into the mirror world, so hence the through the looking glass. Because I was, when we started the movie, I was like,
Sure.
where's
Yeah, I
where's
was
the looking
wondering.
glass coming
The
into play? Like,
title.
what? Why is it? Yeah, why is it called through the
Uh-huh.
looking glass? Give me
The
7 minutes.
teacher, wasn't
Hold.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a teacher, or it was the guy who had a bit of a crush on her, and they sent her into the mirror world to retrieve her brother. So I thought that had a nice build up, because the sister and the brother, they'd had that kind of friction in their relationship. I liked that the climax showed her remembering, like, this is my brother. I have to protect him. I have to go in to get him. And so I thought the mirror world was quite effective. Like I liked that she saw
Yeah.
the other students in there, and they were reaching out for her. That scene where she's walking through like the dozens and dozens of arms are reaching out for her. It kind of shows you how many people the Queen of Spades has actually taken. It's a nice little
Okay.
glimpse into, I think, what that world looked like. And oh dang, the ending. Olga brings Artyom back and she's talking about how she's going to be 18 in a year, so she's going to become his legal guardian in a year, and it all looks so lovely. And then he says, "How did you get out of there?" And she's like, "Oh, that's a
Yeah.
secret." And then we get this terrific pullback into the mirror world where you see the real Olga in there and she's screaming and she's yelling, "Artyom, Artyom," and you're like, oh, dude, because I was not
Yeah.
expecting that. Like, I really wasn't expecting that. And that to me elevated the movie a little bit. Up until then, I was thinking, oh, yeah,
Good.
this is pretty cool. A bit average, but it's okay. But I think that ending was a really nice ending because it didn't try to be too clever or like presented as some big twist. It just showed us, that end shot and left us with that kind of gut punch. So I really liked the ending. What about you?
I did, yeah. That was good. That was clever, and because up to that point, because I was sort of wondering, well, what exactly happened? Sure, what would you rate it?
Well, I thought it was enjoyable. I didn't think it was anything spectacular, but I did like it. I'd probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. Something that you
Okay.
could throw on like a Sunday afternoon, a little bit above average, but nothing that's going to blow your mind. So 6.5 out of 10, I think. What about you?
Okay, I think my rating might go up when I watch it again, but for the time being, I'll go 5.5. I am obviously a bit more negative than you are, but there's still enough in it to make it a solid
Mm.
watch and give it that little bump where it's like just above average. And as I said, I think that score might go up a little bit when I rewatch it because I'll definitely throw this one on again. It is like you said, it is
Yeah.
quite an easy watch. Third movie at some point in
Yeah.
the coming months. So that's Queen of Spades Through the Looking Glass. If you've seen the movie, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It is free on YouTube, unfortunately, in the dubbed version, so you
Yeah.
have to just get used to that. I might even post the link in the video description just so that you can check it out. But yeah, if you do see it or you have seen it, let us know your thoughts. Like and subscribe. Support me on Patreon, patreon.com/boardnow. You can also donate to my PayPal account, just enough donations, so that's on the channel as well. October is we're doing a special list of top 10 Halloween themed TV shows episodes. So that's going to be our sort of special Halloween style list. So it'll either be up by now or it'll be coming up in the coming weeks. So look out for that this month.
Me, Rachel McDonald, video essays covering movies and TV shows, sometimes literature. My Tumblr and my Twitter account are also linked through my YouTube, and Keith is usually lovely enough to put a link in the description, depending on whether or not we've agreed during the video. So I think this one will probably have a link, so come follow me everywhere.
Yeah, I think you might be right this time. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. Keep it spooky, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.